Hey everyone! So I wanted to make this video today to share my story with miscarriage and ectopic pregnancy. So in the last 6 months I have experienced both miscarriage and ectopic pregnancy. Now, when I first found out that I was miscarrying, I turned to YouTube and the internet and Google and all of that, and I found that it was very helpful with giving me the information that I needed to make myself more comfortable, more prepared. I found plenty of women sharing their stories, their experiences. I was able to relate to all these women, but when it came to ectopic, it wasn't the same case. I found maybe 1 or 2 women that had shared their story. I was very grateful for these couple of women that I found, because while I was in hospital dealing with what I had just dealt with, it was amazing to find these 1 or 2 women. So I wanted to add to the collection, I guess. I wanted to put my story out there, so maybe there's another girl going through it, or another woman going through it, who can't find what she's looking for, or just can't find enough stories to make her feel related to enough, or make her not feel so alone. So that's why I wanted to make this video, get my story out there. Back in September of 2017, my partner and I first found out that we were pregnant with our first baby together. My partner has 2 little girls to a previous relationship who I love with my entire heart and soul, but to finally be pregnant with my own baby was just the most amazing feeling. I have wanted to be a mum my entire life, for as long as I can remember. I found out that I was pregnant. It was almost like a relief, and it was like a finally feeling, like I was finally getting my turns. So with the miscarriage, it was kind of like by the books. It wasn't really anything out of the ordinary, I guess. I mean, everyone's different. The stuff you read on the internet, that's exactly how it went. I actually had a missed miscarriage. So with that, I guess my body wasn't processing that I was miscarrying. So I had no spotting, no bleeding, no cramping, nothing whatsoever to give the impression that I would be miscarrying. The only way that we found out was when we went for our dating scan at 9 weeks and there was no heartbeat. Emotionally, that was more harder for me to deal with than the ectopic, because that was like such a euphoric feeling for me to finally have my own. I was never diagnosed with depression, but I think I fell into maybe somewhat of a category of depression. I cried every day in bed. I cried every day at work. Like, I would just cry most nights alone in bed, and it was just one of the hardest things for me emotionally to deal with, and even still to this day I still feel like I'm dealing with it. When it came to the ectopic, physically that was a lot harder to deal with. I don't think anything can prepare you, or anything, once you lose a baby, it's tough every single time. I've now lost 2 babies. Neither one of them were, like, just because I lost the first one didn't make losing my second baby any easier. There was no preparing me for that. With my ectopic, long story coming. In April of this year, 2018, my partner and I found out that we were pregnant again for the 2nd time. Leading up to this, I guess you could say I fell into a vicious cycle. I took a pregnancy test almost weekly, just wanting to see that double line. I was just craving that feeling of a happy pregnancy. So when we found out that we were pregnant, I was excited, but also very nervous and honestly petrified. Looking back now, I could say that I almost felt something was wrong the entire pregnancy, but I mean, my results were coming back fine. My bloods, like my HCG level was rising and almost doubling. So when we first went for our first blood test to again confirm that we were pregnant, it was fine. Our levels were spot on where they should be for the amount of weeks that we should have been. So that was awesome. So fast forward to our dating scan, which would have been roughly 2 to 3 weeks after we found out. We went in for the dating scan. I was petrified. I think most women, once they have a miscarriage, they just get this yucky gut feeling in their stomach every time they go for a scan. And I just felt sick to my stomach sitting there waiting. So we get called in eventually, and she starts the ultrasound. She took her time and didn't really say much at all to us. When she did, she had said that what she was seeing was not didn't look like a pregnancy. She said there is definitely something there, but it did not look like a viable pregnancy, as we were, I think we should have been 7 to 8 weeks. That was our estimate based off my last period date. She had said whatever she was seeing, which didn't look like a pregnancy, but it was measuring the size of a 4-week pregnancy. Little confused, not knowing what to do, what to say, or where to go from there. We went back to my doctor with these results and this scan, and he had suggested that we do another blood test because we may have just been earlier than what we expected. I might have got my dates mixed up, we don't know. Those results ended up coming back awesome. My levels were rising again, so that was a massive relief for me. I had almost felt like my world was shattered and then put back together again all at once. So that put a little bit of excitement in me, but at the same time I still wasn't feeling like something was right. I had almost no pregnancy symptoms whatsoever apart from the missing period, and my boobs had gotten bigger. With the last pregnancy I was nauseous. I never vomited or anything, but I was quite nauseous. I was very tired. Again, my boobs were bigger and sore, but that was about it. And I did have implantation bleeding with my miscarriage. After that blood scan, we went home, left it for about a week or two, and I started to spot again. And people had told me it's probably just implantation bleeding, you know, you had it before, it's probably just the same again. And I had just put it down to, yeah, they're probably right. I mean, every pregnancy is different, whatever. So another 2-3 weeks passed by and I started bleeding, and it was proper bleeding like a period. It was just very light. So I went back to my doctor and he had suggested an emergency scan. I went in for my scan. The lady had said that she couldn't see a pregnancy, but she could see cysts, or what she thought might have been cysts. So I took those results back to my doctor. We did more bloods, and it turns out that they had predicted a molar pregnancy. Again, there's not much of that on the internet, pretty much only on Google. I haven't seen much on YouTube or any videos really related to that. So that was another scary thing. I didn't really know what I was dealing with, only what I could read off Google. And Google was basically telling me that it's cysts that produce the pregnancy hormone, and that is why you get the positive pregnancy tests. After that, we proceeded to book me in for a DNC. I went to the hospital into emergency, where they did a whole bunch of tests and said that a DNC is our best option, as for a molar pregnancy you have to go in for a DNC. They take out the tissue and they'll test that tissue, and that is the only way to confirm a molar pregnancy, is if that tissue is tested. Now fast forward to the next day, the day I was booked in. I got out of bed, hopped into the shower, and I started hearing this ringing noise in my ear, and everything went muffled. It sounded like I was underwater. So I just went on, I didn't think anything of it, and then I started to feel really weak. And I've never fainted before, so I didn't really know what to look out for. So I hopped out the shower and sat on the toilet, and thank God at this time my mum was getting home. My partner was in bed asleep still, but he can sleep through anything, so there was no hope if something was going wrong there that I was going to get him to wake up. So I called out to my mum. I said, "Mum, I really need you to grab me a bucket. I think I'm going to vomit." So she grabbed me a bucket, and I'm still completely naked on the toilet. And by this time I had started getting some really excruciating pain, and the only way that I can explain it is like 100 knives stabbing you all at once where a period cramp would be. As time goes on, the pain gets more and more excruciating, and then I started to go to the bathroom. By this time my mum had gone in and woken my partner up, and he had to physically come in and hold me upright onto the toilet, because I was with it, but I couldn't hold my own body weight. I couldn't hold myself up. So he was helping with keeping me upright. And by this time my mum had decided that the best option would be to call the ambulance. So the ambulance were called, and okay, so my camera died, so I'm sorry if the lighting or the angle's a little bit different, but you know, life goes on. She called the ambulance, and on the phone they actually asked, is it an ectopic pregnancy? And we had said no, like we hadn't even heard this option yet, like it wasn't even in our thoughts. So the ambulance got to my house around maybe 5 or 10 minutes after the call, and they were asking me to explain the pain rating on a scale of 1 to 10. I think I might have said around an 8 or 9. They gave me the option to have the green whistle, and I accepted, as anything at this point to relieve the pain I would have accepted. Didn't actually relieve the pain. It didn't even really take the edge off. It just made me a little bit loopy. So I just felt drunk, to be honest. There was no pain relief to it. It kind of made me sidetracked a little bit. So I remember being in the ambulance and us driving off from my house. And then after that, I remember waking up as they were wheeling me into the hospital, into the emergency department. And then I must have passed out after that, because after that I remember waking up in the waiting room. When I woke up in the waiting room, I remember feeling like I was busting to go to the toilet. I was still really out of it, so I remember yelling, and then these names were being called and they weren't my names, and I said, "Mom, that's not my name. Like, I heard that I was going to be next." So they eventually directed my mum in the direction of the toilets, and at that time, that is when a doctor came out and said, "Okay, we're ready for Courtney." So they wheeled me in. I actually don't remember that at all. I remember waking up on the toilet, and I remember having a nurse to my right and my partner to my left. And other than that, I remember seeing this very white, bright light in front of me. And now I honestly believe that that was like the light that you cross into. So I had the nurse on my right yelling, not yelling at me, but she was trying to get me up off the toilet and into a bed. So they eventually got me into a wheelchair. Now I was kind of in and out at this point, so I just remember little bits and pieces. Apparently my mum had told me that a man had actually given up his bed for me. So I thank that man tremendously, because if we had have waited any longer, I probably wouldn't be here today. So from there, I remember being on the bed and screaming that I still needed to go to the toilet. I don't know why, but I was just more comfortable on the toilet. I don't know if maybe me being curled up, I don't know, maybe the pressure just helped a little bit. But then I remember this lady saying, "Going to the toilet and wetting your pants is the least of your worries at the moment." And I passed out again after that. So I remember them running me down a hallway in the bed, and then I remember waking up in resuscitation. So I had a lady here on my left, and she was saying, I was still screaming out in pain, and at this point I still felt like I hadn't had any pain relief. And I was screaming, I said, "Please give me something, I need something, please, it hurts so much." And she was rubbing my shoulder and she said, "Darling, you're fine, you're safe, everything's gonna be all right." And then she looked over to Nathan, my partner, and my mum, who were on my right, and they said, "We need to cut her shirt off." So they cut my shirt off, cut my bra off, and then I must have passed out again and then came to pretty quickly afterwards, because I remember waking up as she was talking to Nathan and my mum saying, "Baby's in the wrong spot, we need to rush her to surgery." And they had said baby, we were told that there was no baby and it was potentially a molar pregnancy. The nurse then said, "There's definitely a baby and it's definitely in the wrong spot and we need to get it out now." So then after this, I remember running down yet again another hallway and then passing out again and waking up in the room just before they wheel you into surgery. Nothing much happened there. I just remember I remember telling the man on my right not to lose my ring, because he was taking off, said, "Don't you lose that." I remember being in the surgery room, but looking back now, I obviously know where I was, but at the time I had no idea I was about to have some serious surgery. So next thing, I wake up and I'm in recovery. Now the lady on my left was like, "Are you okay? Do you know where you are? How are you feeling?" She said, "We're just gonna check your blood pressure and your temperature a couple times over the next half hour, 45 minutes or so, and then we'll wheel you up to your room." And I thought, okay, no worries. And then she said, "There'll be a doctor in to explain to you what happened." Half an hour, 45 minutes goes by, and I start getting rolled to my room. As we're rolling back, I see my family on my right side, and I said, "Oh, Dad," or so they stopped, and then my family all crowded around me. I still at this point had no idea, but the looks on their faces pretty much told me enough. We eventually get into the room. At this point, I think I was pretty high on endone. I don't know who I looked at or who I asked what had happened, and I don't remember who ended up telling me, but someone said, "Oh, it was an ectopic pregnancy." And I thought, what? Like, that's just insane. Like, that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen to you. Like, you can hear about all these things, and before this I had only heard of it maybe 1 or 2 times. So it's just the thought of this happening to you? It was so like mind-blowing. And at that point it had hit me. Yeah, I had lost a second child, but I was so numb that I didn't even emotionally react to it at all. Again, I forget who it was that told me, but they had informed me that I had keyhole surgery. Apparently I was gone for 3-4 hours for a surgery that takes 1 or 2. They had removed my left tube as baby had ruptured, and there was no saving my left tube, so that had to be taken out. I had lost 2 liters of blood, which is, I'm pretty sure, I'm no doctor or expert, but I'm pretty sure that's like 1/3 of all the blood that we have in our body. Because of that, I had to have a blood transfusion in surgery. I was hemorrhaging from the inside, I was bleeding internally. That, again, I didn't really emotionally react to that. I was kind of just like, oh, okay, like that's weird. Everything started to calm down a little bit, and I started to get the gas pain. For this particular procedure, they pump you full of gas, so your body expands. That gas pain is almost as, I wouldn't say as excruciating as the pain from the ectopic, but it is pretty equivalent. Different kind of pains, but on the pain scale, like on the 1 to 10 kind of a thing, it was pretty much, they were both around an 8. With this, emotionally, I wouldn't say it was easier, but it took me a little while to deal with it emotionally, whereas physically it was a lot harder. With my miscarriage, when I had my DNC, I went in for the DNC, I bled for maybe 4 or 5 days and everything was fine. I bounced back. So emotionally that was harder. This one was physically harder until I came home and started to realize what had happened. But that night in the hospital was really hard. After everyone went home and I was alone in the room, my partner had to go home too, is when I realized that I had in fact lost a second baby. And that was a real big shock to me, because this whole pregnancy, I wasn't feeling a connection, there's something wrong. And then when I was told that there was a molar pregnancy, or a potential molar pregnancy, I was like, well, this explains it. So that pretty much put me in the mindset that there was no baby. And then so to be told that there was in fact a baby, it was like a massive slap in the face or a kick in the gut. So that night was pretty tough. So I had spent 2 days in the hospital, from Friday morning to Sunday morning, which was actually our anniversary. So it was nice to be able to come home and spend a little time with my partner. Not the way we would have liked to spend our anniversary mourning the loss of our second baby, but I mean, that's life. You have to deal with what cards are thrown to you, unfortunately. Once I got home is when it really started to hit me emotionally. It wasn't like my miscarriage at all. Everything reminded me of it. Because of the blood transfusion, I was on an iron supplement because I had lost so much blood. I needed to build that back up again and make sure that it stayed at a good level. So there was that. Every time I took these tablets, it was like a reminder that I had lost my baby. Every time I went for a shower, I saw my incision scars. Honestly, it never gets easier at all. Still to this day, I am dealing with the fact that I have now lost 2 babies. It never gets easier. I think we just find better ways to cope. I still think of my babies every single day. I still cry some days, and then some days I am happy and I find comfort in the fact that my babies have each other and they'll never be alone. But it is 100% the hardest thing that I have ever had to go through and will ever have to go through. And for any future or potential pregnancies, it puts that fear in you. And no matter times how many people say, you know, you'll get your chance, you'll be a mum, it hurts even more. And I know what people are trying to say. They're just trying to give me comfort and give me that hope, but I am a mum. I just don't get to hold my babies. I'm still a mum. I'll always be a mum. I carried my babies for as long as I could, and I know one day I'll get my chance. I had my 6-week checkup yesterday actually, and the doctor has informed me that next month would be good for me to start trying again. Not that me and my partner will or are thinking of that at the moment. I mean, emotionally, I still think I'm dealing with the loss of my 2 babies. But when it happens, and when it's supposed to happen, it will. So I've always wanted to be a mum, as I mentioned earlier, and I think now, and I would have always appreciated any baby that was sent to me, but I think more so now, I'll appreciate it more than ever, and I will never ever take pregnancy for granted. And I see people, I feel like it almost feels like once you lose a baby that everyone else is pregnant, everyone else is announcing it, everyone you know has a baby, and it is almost the hardest thing to deal with, because it's like, it's not even like I'm angry, it's not, it's just, it could have been me. By now I should have a 1-month-old, or I should be 15-16 weeks pregnant. Like, it just feels so unfair. Some days it's okay and some days it's not, and it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to have those bad days, and I want any woman to know that you can take as long as you need to heal, because it is the worst pain and the worst feeling in the world to lose a baby. No one can put a time bracket on your healing. I honestly don't think that I'll ever fully again be the person that I was before I lost my babies. It has changed me, most likely for the better, because I appreciate everything, I appreciate every day, and I don't take any moment for granted, and I am not wasting any more time, because my body was failing. I was dying in that hospital, and it has just given me a new outlook on life. I'll get my baby one day, and I know I will. Some day I try to be positive, some days are harder than others, but I try my best to be happy and make the bad days come good in the end. In whatever way I can, I will look at ultrasounds, I will look at my old pregnancy tests and remember how happy I felt in that moment, and know that one day again I will feel that, and I will get my baby one day. And for any lost mum out there that is feeling alone, I am so sorry for what you have gone through, because it sucks. It bloody sucks. I hope that any woman who has gone through this finds peace one day, and I hope that we all get our rainbows. So if anything comes from this video, I hope that there's someone that will relate or feel less alone because if they found this video and heard my story. So if you made it to the end, thank you for watching. I appreciate you taking the time. I hope I give people a bit more of an understanding on how serious ectopic pregnancy is. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening to my story. I hope I help someone. I hope I get the word out even a little bit. So thank you. Bye.